On this week's GTA 6 o'clock, the story behind Lucia's ankle monitor, the $21 million penthouse from the trailer, and both voice actors now confirmed. It's all here on this week's GTA 5 o'clock. No! It's all here on this week's GTA 6 o'clock. Yes, hello, and welcome to episode 21 of GTA 6 o'clock. My name is James Jarvis, and I am joined in the studio by Dan Dawkins.
Hello there. What you cannot see is we're also joined by a third member of the GTA 6 o'clock team, James's dog, who I don't expect to have a tremendous input on the conversation, but I will add that if you hear sort of mild rustling noises or the chewing of a biscuit, it's not necessarily us. It might be our beloved canine friend.
Not necessarily us, but we cannot confirm or deny that it might be, especially in relation to the biscuit. But yes, if you do hear some things, it's probably her wandering around. So, Dan, hello. Welcome to everybody listening. Thank you all for your support. As always, please subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. And we also have a new email address for you to email us tips, questions, anything like that. If you can't get links in the YouTube comments or on Twitter, it's easy to share them via email. So you'll be surprised to hear it's GTAVIOclock@gmail.com. GTA 6 o'clock, but the Roman numerals for 6, like they would write it for the game, @gmail.com. I'm sure we'll put it on screen to make it easier for you. So please send us any tips you've got. Anyone listening from, Rockstar, we're quite happy to keep you anonymous. If you want to just shed some light on a few things, that's fine. But let's jump into the topics we've got this week, Dan. The mixture of things to go over, starting with something fun. And we've got a new real-life creation of the trailer by Andrew Levitt, who him and one of his friends went to Miami and recreated almost every shot of the trailer for this new look at it. So we get to see some of the real life locations that the trailer has been inspired by. Lots of people have done this before. Obviously, I think this one is maybe the most complete. It's definitely got a lot more drone shots in there from very specific angles and things. So I think it was a really good effort. Well done, Andrew. There's a couple of things I wanted to point out on this that you guys may have seen already, but they visited the strip club that's in the trailer, which we can see loads of people in it. There's a sign that says like "Make It Rain Mondays" and all of that kind of stuff. They went and found that place, went in, totally empty. No dancers, no clientele. There were people working. So they did have an interaction and they went, "Oh, are you here for, would you like a dance?" And they immediately said no and left. But they did manage to record a tiny clip from inside, I think, which I don't think you're actually allowed to do certainly not in the UK. You're allowed to do that in strip clubs. I don't think you're probably allowed to do it.
All my attempts to film in strip clubs have ended really badly. So,
but I guess if there's nobody there, maybe they got away with it. But you can see that the layout is very similar to the one in the trailer. But yeah, not quite the full GTA experience from the trailer. Not sure what day they went. Maybe it wasn't Make It Rain Mondays. And the only other thing that I wanted to point out on this is they tried to visit the balcony that we see, the lady in the bikini who, I mean, let's not open up the is it Lucia or not debate again. But that shot, they tried to visit that. It's actually, half of it is a hotel, which we knew. The other half is a penthouse, which is currently on sale for $21 million. Or you can rent a bit of it for $4,733 a night, which they also couldn't afford to do. But you can see from the drone shot that this is the same balcony.
Yes.
And actually, I think what it does show is sort of some of what I think is the condensed bit of the city. So like the high-rise buildings and things that you can see in the background, it is from a slightly different angle, but you can see how Rockstar may have moved a few things to just sort of bunch everything up a bit and make it the world a bit more alive on that bit of the city.
Yeah, I did it. This got me thinking about properties in GTA 6 and GTA Online, and that's probably a separate episode. But just to sort of say that, $21 million in real life is an astonishing amount of money, even for rich people. So I wonder if this correlates to something like the Master penthouse, which is currently the most expensive, residence you can get in GTA Online, which I guess retails at a mere $1.5 million, but with all the full upgrades, that's actually nearer $6 million. And that is your passport to all of the Diamond Casino missions in online. But yeah, that's a big flex. And I wonder to what extent you'll be able to flex in the new GTA Online, and also to what extent the full tier of missions and capabilities will be driven by your ability to pay. But that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, I guess what this does open up for us to talk about quickly is, obviously this is very, in real life, obviously high-end living, but even from the trailer shot, you're like, yeah, these people clearly are splashing some cash around. But what does that tell us about the story? Because Jason and Lucia's story, from what we can tell from the trailer, isn't this lifestyle. So what does this shot tell us about, is this aspirational? Is this something that they are looking to get to? Is this just a sense of, hey, look, this city has both ends of the scale. We have people who are robbing convenience stores, and we have people who are up on their balconies in the same place. Or do you think it's more of just like a color and flavor type thing for the trailer?
Yeah, I guess that goes back to that hinge question of, is this or is this not Lucia actually pictured on the balcony? But without entirely relitigating that, I guess it does raise that idea of, is GTA 6 a rags to riches tale, or is it a riches to rags tale, as we've sometimes speculated? Aspiration has been at the core. It's the core of the American dream and the core of all GTA games. I guess 5 was interesting because Michael, for example, had already achieved the American dream and was bored and wanted to do it again because it was the thrill of the doing he wanted, etc., etc. But the perception we have is that Jason and Lucia are like small-time crooks to begin with, and you assume that's because there's some need for them to get, whether it's as shallow as I want to be rich. I think there'll be more to it than that. I think it's just a pure let's get rich tale and go to the club and waste all our money. That might be part of it, but I'd be amazed if it was as vacuous as you've got no money, then you have some money, and the moral of the story is you get to party in a $21 million penthouse. I doubt that tremendously. And like we've also said on the episode, could it be there's some more real reason they need money? And also to assume they're actually on the same side, which we don't know, and again is another episode in itself.
Well, we'll touch on some more of this a bit later on in the episode. So get your thoughts together and we'll come back to this shortly. Okay then, Dan, moving on to everyone's favourite topic, Take-Two's earnings call. Now, they have announced that this is coming on May the 16th, which is just 24 days away. Or, to put it more importantly, 2 episodes to go of GTA 6 o'clock before there is an earnings call. It's on a Thursday night, so that means we might have to do a special episode if there's something new. But what we're anticipating, or at least from what I'm anticipating, is if there's going to be something, it's going to come out, I'm going to say just before that call. I guess it could be just after. Now I'm second guessing myself. Around that time, I think we might have
all eyes on that
something.
week. Definitely, because if the fear is, if there's bad news in the post, it'll have to be in that earnings call.
Yeah.
And then, like we've discussed many times, they might mitigate that with, but don't worry, here's a new trailer, and we've gently modified the release window, and here's some new stuff to not think about it and don't worry. Yeah. So let's see. But the absolute detail will be in the earnings call. I think either way, expect episode or episodes of GTA 6 o'clock that week, depending on what gets dropped and when.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards more of a handful, or a very small handful of screenshots rather than a full trailer. I don't think they're going to put out another trailer that quickly, but we can all dream. So yes, 2 weeks to go, May 16th. Let's see what they come up with. Related to that, there was some more news in the past week that Take-Two, which is obviously the publisher of GTA 6, is going to downsize its workforce by 5% and scrap some projects. Now, before anyone gets panicked, we suspect that this probably isn't related to Rockstar at all or GTA. This is going to be other projects from within the company, correct?
Yes. I mean, will they scrap the most anticipated video game in the world? No. So it's nothing overtly to do with GTA 6. The important thing to note is that, Take-Two is not Rockstar. Take-Two is a much bigger parent company who have a number of subsidiaries, including, Take-Two games themselves, or 2K games, which is NBA 2K and the WWE games. There's another project, like a sort of core AAA shooter. I think, are they doing the Judas project? Is that theirs?
It's 2K.
2K games. They own Private Division, who do a number of notable indies, including No Rest for the Wicked, amongst many other titles.
And Zynga, right? So
yeah,
a whole load of mobile.
Yeah, and a whole load of mobile stuff. So we can talk a little bit more about what they've said publicly, and then I was going to do a little piece looking at actually what does this mean, because the answers are in their share price.
Yeah, the quick bullet points to go over if you haven't seen them is the plan includes scrapping some video game projects and laying off 5% of the workforce. The layoffs were not initially part of the initiative and were thus only considered as a last resort. Take-Two estimates the initiative to cost $16 to $200 million, out of which 40 to 60 million is anticipated to be paid out in cash.
Which is effectively redundancies, right? And I guess impairment charges, that sort of thing. But it will be redundancies, I guess.
Yeah, specifically, it says the breakdown includes around $120 to $140 million on account of the cancelled projects, $25 to $35 million on employee severance, and $15 to $25 million for downsizing office space. So they might be selling some buildings. They've obviously pumped a fair amount of money into projects that they are cancelling. 120 to 140 million. That's the size of a pretty reasonable AA these days, probably. But it's not something. It's probably nothing that we have heard of, or anything that we are going to hear of. It's just going to be one of those internal things that is going to never see the light of day.
And in terms of employees, like, the percentages can be quite abstract. I mean, Take-Two have in the region of 11,500 employees globally, which is huge. So, 10% will be 1,100 approximately.
Well, it's 5%.
Yeah, so it's 5%. That's what I mean. So I'm doing the reductive maths.
Even less.
So it's it's affecting potentially, let's say, 600 to 700 people. But that is the size of a lot of companies and a lot of developers. And this is not an insignificant move, even though it's only 5%.
Is there any other little facts and tidbits that we want to cover on this?
Yeah, well, I thought what would be interesting is always follow the money. And by that, it's usually reflected in the share price, because that shows you what analysts and people who invest in Take-Two actually think of the news and the moves themselves. Now, what's interesting is this is the savage reality of the capitalist, share system. Normally, when people announce cost-cutting efficiencies and job losses, share prices go up, because investors see that as a good thing, because they actually think this company will now be cheaper and more profitable. Mm-hmm. Now, this move, this was announced only last week, like about a week ago on April the 16th. And actually, it had almost no impact on the share price. Like, the share price maybe actually dipped by 1%, but that's not really statistically significant. It might be bigger market factors at play, which could be any kind of thing. We're also living in the background of what feels like, World War style conversations. So I think you can't really pin this announcement to any major change in the share price. If anything, you would have expected it to have slightly gone up, but it didn't. So I would say that the market doesn't really feel bothered by these announcements, is essentially what that's saying. Now, to go a little bit further back in time, what has moved the dial on Take-Two's share price? Well, if you go all the way back to February the 8th, which was their last earnings call, where they did announce a couple of things the analysts and Citi really didn't like. So one was they said that the NBA 2K game had sales that were slightly down. They also said they were seeing slightly lower recurring revenues from some of the Zynga and the mobile products. And they also announced they were delaying a title to the next financial year, as in after March 31st, 2024. That might actually be, my suspicion is, No Rest for the Wicked, the early access private division game. I'm not sure, but it could be, because I think I know that has slipped slightly. But either way, that was significant. So to put this in context, that call made Take-Two's share price drop by 8%. So that's the sort of thing that moves the dial on a share price. Now, final bit of context. If you go back to March the 22nd, Kotaku ran that story. We've debated quite a lot on this show about, could GTA 6 slip? Now, actually, that did move the share price, which is, it shows the danger of rumor, and also shows the sheer power and importance of GTA. So the Kotaku leak, directly or indirectly, dropped the share price between 4 to 5%. So much more than them very definitely cutting 5% of the workforce and cancelling projects and so on and so forth. So, I guess it's stating the obvious, but it shows that the finances of this company are absolutely aligned with GTA. Were they to announce a delay, especially out of a financial year, watch the share price come the earnings call.
Which is, as we've said, in 2 weeks' time. So, for any of you people who are, like a bit of investing over there, I would hold off for a little bit until that earnings call. If the share price drops again, that's the time to get your...
Share prices can go up as well as down, as all financial advisors say, and I would echo the same sentiment rather than you have you risk your own money.
Yes. So, but I'm going to wait 2 weeks. All right, some interesting news now, and a report from Game Rant that has revealed that, as they say, Gregory Connors is involved in GTA 6. Now, this was a detail that was spotted in his resume that stated that he had done voiceover for a lead character for Rockstar Games. The name of the project was put to TBD, or to be disclosed, but it had a release date of 2025. And as Game Rant said in their article, the only project from Rockstar that we know that is slated for 2025 currently is GTA 6. So is Gregory Connors playing a lead role in GTA 6? Not necessarily Jason. It could be one of the other, it could be a co-star or a villain or a high, a reoccurring NPC that you meet quite a lot. Yeah. But I think especially the rumor mill and the internet crowd have led into, well, then he's clearly Jason. And I think just before we press the big red record button, Dan, you were saying he sort of matches up with do the characters sort of look like, their real life counterparts? Yeah. In this case, certain pictures of him, you'd say absolutely do.
Yeah, there's pictures of him online where he looks, I mean this generously, like an actor, but also slightly crazed and beardy, which, but beards can be shaved off.
He could have a shave.
Yeah, and if you look at his actual facial profile, it passes the sniff test on visual approximation to, Jason, as we call him, right? So that would make sense. We don't currently know of any other obvious, unless he's Lucia, that seems exceedingly unlikely. So, or is he some antagonist of which is unknown? Maybe. But if this is all true and correct, and he's not just putting things on his CV, making them up or what have you, it would most closely align with Jason.
Yeah, and some people have taken some audio from the 2022 leaks and put it against some of his acting. It sounds quite similar, but we've done this before, and yes, you can make people sound quite similar quite easily. I would say, for me, it does sound quite similar. He does look quite the same, and if he's put this on his resume, there's a lot of boxes he's ticking there. What I find weird, and we have said this before about a lot of this other stuff, is why that has happened. Because after all those leaks, I would imagine, or in fact, we work with voiceover people before, and we all have NDAs, and when people can and can't speak about things. And I would have thought after that leak, Rockstar would have gone around to all of their key partners and said, "Look, we've had this leak. We are battening down the hatches. Please don't do anything that is going to, make these rumors go any further. Let's just go quiet. We'll let you know when you can start talking about stuff, and then let's, work together on a plan. And I'm sure they would have said that to all of their lead voice actors. So the fact that it has appeared on his resume, to me, is weird. And, it's appeared and then it's been deleted. But I just think from a professional level, he would have gone, just so you guys know, I'm about to update my CV. Can I put lead character in a Rockstar game that's coming out in 2025 on it? And they would have gone, you can say it off the record, but don't post it publicly because his CV is publicly accessible. That just feels weird, unless, as we have said before, it's part of the bigger marketing plan where they are, going, you can do this, take it down again. We'll get a few more people talking about lead actors and the game again. It will put it back. We've done 21 episodes of this show, and every week we have found stuff to talk about. Like they're managing to keep, at least amongst the hardcore,
yes,
the train rolling down the tracks, right? So it could be a part of that bigger plan. It just from a promo level feels weird to me that he would be allowed to do it, and even wouldn't have asked to do it, and then someone would have said yes, unless they've secretly said yes.
Yeah, this is a difficult one because as a general rule, I always think you should not ascribe to master intelligence that could be explained by incompetence. So,
yes.
It's possible, like his agent has gone, so Gregory, the important thing is do not write anything on your CV. And he's gone, yeah. And then like accidentally changed it or just not been thinking, or someone else has done it on behalf of someone else and wasn't looped into the original email. All of those things are possible, which sounds a little bit like we had a similar conversation about Anita Baker and the leaked track the other week, which felt it was between, was it deliberate? Is it it felt like at worst it's massively incompetent.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is quite on the same scale, but where I would agree with you is, like, if you are a Rockstar, because GTA is the most speculated upon video game in the world and there's such a fervent community, you could run an entire PR campaign in the shadows. I'm not saying they definitely are, but I'm saying you could, because the patient is being monitored, and if it bats an eyelid during its coma, it's endlessly reported on. And that is the reality of it. So I could accept that they are doing this as to keep people like us happy, but equally I could buy into the you can't overestimate how stupid people are. That's part of it as well.
Well, I mean, let's just say that the current speculation then is that if this is true, and a lot of people, I think including you, landed on Manny Perez as Lucia. So now we've got Conor Gregory of Jason and Manny Perez as Lucia. Seems to be the wave of where everyone is landing right now. So just put that out there. Let us know what you think about those two people in the comments, and we will see at some point once everything is finally revealed. And just one last thing I want to tackle this week, Dan, which is something that I've been thinking about for a while, and I'm glad we've managed to find some time on this podcast to talk about it, is in the artwork, Lucia obviously has an ankle tag on.
Yeah.
So I've gone away and had a little look into like what crimes do you have to do to get an ankle tag in the US? Because clearly she has one. We're not obviously sure when she's going to get one.
Yes.
Or what she has done. But there's a few things here that are actually interesting that I can throw out, and you can live react to them. So this information is from AWM Law, who have a big old page about ankle monitors in the US. So they are typically used for individuals who are on probation or parole, or for those who are awaiting trial. It can be used for individuals convicted of a crime but are considered low risk and not a danger to the community. Using ankle monitors gives criminal defense counsel an extra option while allowing individuals convicted of certain crimes to continue to work, attend school, and care for their families while also serving their sentences. They've got several advantages over traditional imprisonment. They're less expensive than keeping a person in jail or in prison, and they allow for people to maintain their jobs and support families. There are some disadvantages for the people wearing them, like they're uncomfortable, they can cause skin irritation. But people who are wearing them are also subjected to strict rules and regulations, and any violation of these rules can result in additional penalties or even traditional imprisonment. So the point is to limit the subject's movement and ability to fall into further infractions inadvertently is a concern. So what that is saying, and we've got a bit more information on like who gets a court anchored ankle monitor. There's different categories of basically what you would get for it. But what it's saying is it's low-level crimes. It still allows people to move around, but still pretty restricted. So from a gameplay point of view, that is a difficult thing to get your head around, because as soon as if you've got one on, go outside a certain zone, you are at risk in the real world of being, re-arrested or prosecuted and put in actual prison. So there's a couple of reasons of things that she might be wearing it for. So let's see if any of these connect with you, Dan. The first, and this is from KAPA Technologies website. The first one is unlawful immigrants. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement will sometimes order a GPS monitor instead of holding illegal immigrants in a detention facility. They do not pose any threat or risk of leaving. This is a common alternative while they await their hearing. So that would mean that Lucia has to come from outside of the U.S. to get to Florida as an immigrant, and then is detained at some point, but released with an ankle monitor on. I think the challenge with that is if they're awaiting their hearing and you can't stay in the US anymore, she has to leave and the game goes somewhere else.
Yeah, there's been some line of reasoning linking like Cuban radio or marketing in this world, and could she be of Cuban heritage? Possibly, and that could potentially raise the idea that she's like an illegal immigrant. There are sort of like treaties or precedents in place where Cubans can be fast-tracked for US citizenship, but that's getting into a whole realm that I'm not really equipped to talk about. So possibly, like, there could be an immigration thing, but I suspect it's something else.
Another reason is individuals convicted with driving under the influence, so DUIs. Someone arrested for a DUI, the court may order them to wear an alcohol ankle monitor to prevent them from consuming alcohol while they await their trial. This is more cost-effective than regularly sending out a probation officer to test individuals for alcohol use, and also more frequent check-ins. So it monitors like the sweat in your body to see if you've been consuming alcohol, and it also GPS tracks you to see if you've been in any bars or not. There is, I guess, aside from the not being allowed to drink alcohol for a certain amount of time, this would say then that at some point she has been caught with a DUI and has, been pulled over by the police, and they've issued her this kind of ankle monitor instead of sending her off to, to prison. You think that's on the cards, that it could be a reason for her wearing it?
Possibly. Like, you see, there's instances in the trailer which may or may not be Lucia. There's obviously the penthouse scene. There's the person who's like going wild on the car, which feels pretty reckless. There are possibly things that could be linked back to like substance abuse and or alcohol, which could be reason to wear an ankle bracelet. Again, we're assuming the logical order of things, that
yes.
The trailer one follows another, which we don't know. So far, the thing that stood out to me is this idea that you might have an ankle bracelet if you were required to care for a family member. That if you were to like join the dots on things that might motivate someone to do a crime, it's often to do with, and a sympathetic reason to do a crime. It's often linked to there's a real family reason and there's an injustice at play, and that kind of Robin Hood style theory, or doing it for a greater good that the police just don't understand. But I don't know, I don't know if that was the thing that relates back to, is that to do with being under the influence? Don't know.
Yeah, and that ties into the next category, which is someone on parole or probation. Depending on these terms, someone might be restricted to their homes, allowed to go to work, attend parole meetings, or visit the doctor. Terms that require a probation ankle monitor are common in sex offenders, some drug crimes, flight risks, and those with prior DUIs. So it could be that she is on parole or probation for something and has been deemed a flight risk. So then for that would tick a lot of boxes of the early portion of the game. You're not allowed to use the planes because you've got this ankle monitor on. I suspect with all of these things, though, which we might get onto, she's going to have to get off on whatever crime that she is, been given the ankle monitor for. At some point, that is either going to have to run out, because I can't see a world in her removing it as part of the story, because that's just going to bring more in real life. That would bring more, cops or, whoever to try and find you and rearrest you for taking off your ankle monitor. So I can't really see that happening unless the game takes place in a very short space of time.
Yeah.
I think whatever it is, she's probably going to have to get off and not be convicted of whatever crime it is.
The one logical pathway is more that, the thing where we see with the ankle monitor is at the start of the game, there's some kind of deal done between her and a parole officer and all the authorities, and then she has to do a set of things for a higher reason. The bigger, the speculation within the game is that, there's some sort of, one's a robber, one's a cop mechanic between Jason and Lucia. Without, if it was the case that she was working with the forces, with the FBI or whoever, would that then say that Jason is the baddie, inverted commas? I don't know, because, again, the alternative thing was that he's actually the police officer. So this is the great unknown, is who's good or who's bad within their relationship, or if indeed that's the question. And actually, in itself, that would be interesting, because as we've said, the nature of who's right and who's wrong is interesting in America. Having that confused who's good and who's bad dynamic between the two characters would be really fascinating.
Yeah, most of the time, these things seem to, some of the other criteria is that you get one for it being your first offence. If you're a juvenile under the supervision of their parents, so that's not happening. A non-violent offender, someone with a stable employment history, or a low-level offence. Now, if they meet any of those criteria, they can be given an ankle monitor for. So what we are talking about here is actually, especially up until that point, Lucia isn't the hardened criminal at all. This could be one of her first forays into the criminal underworld. It could be something that she's done that's pretty low level, that they're just okay, well, I'm going to let you off with this monitor and see how you get on. It does say that, especially for the A portion of the game, she's not going to be coming from a big criminal background, Michael was the mastermind behind all of the heists. That's not where we're at with these characters.
No, it feels like it's start low in scale. That's certainly the way it's been presented. And then it's a question of, I guess, is it that if she's in for a low level offence and is then attached to Jason because he's under suspicion, or he is assigned to her as a handler or a helper because it's some connection she has and he wants to protect her while she gets closer to it? Could it be that whether it's in her extended family or through relationships, she's part of a much bigger, she has links to a much bigger crime operation that they're ultimately looking to break, and she's the key to it? And maybe it is that she's, as a character, known that she's in a family that's basically up to no good, and she's tried her best to resist it, but something has gone wrong for her for whatever reason, and then the police pull her in and say, okay, we actually want to get to this person, work with us. I don't know, but I think it will play out I don't think you'll be robbing convenience stores through the entire game. You think it will only scale.
Yeah.
It would be weird were it to be in the final mission is a slightly larger convenience store. That seems ridiculous. Given the way GTA 5 scaled and the heists, you would expect it to go to some crazy places. So you would think that's where, we're seeing where the game begins.
So what happens if she gets rid of this or, tries to tamper with the ankle monitor? Well, if an offender violates their conditions while under the supervision of a monitoring system, they will be subject to arrest. After the arrest, the judge will determine whether they face any consequences for violating their terms. When offenders try to tamper with their devices, the device signals law enforcement agencies of the misuse. Offenders caught doing this often face arrest. Violation of house arrest can cause stricter terms, jail time, or revoked parole. In the cases of parole, the offender is likely to face reincarnation. So basically, this is saying, if you've got an ankle monitor on, don't be doing any other crimes.
Yeah, and just to flag, you said reincarnation.
Yeah,
not reincarceration.
No.
So reincarnation would be you enter the spirit realm, which I actually would be a brilliant game mechanic. And not actually the first time such a game mechanic has appeared in a game. So I've played a number of games but I only exclusively play Souls-likes where you get reincarnated.
All the time.
Yeah, but this is not that. So
No.
you would face reincarceration, which is a nightmare to say. Let's see how this plays out. Like I could see an element of maybe, at the very, very start of the game, you could imagine a small playable section where an ankle tag is almost part of the mechanic, like you've said, where it only lets you see a certain part of the game world because it would by definition lock out certain things and places. So it might be a clever way to give you almost like a Star Tours version of the GTA 6 world because you can't go certain places or the tag goes off. But even so, that would be quite restrictive and would be something that could only probably work for like 20 to 30 minutes or something, like a mission or extended mission start of the game.
It's like the tutorial, right? That would essentially be learn these new mechanics again. You're in this world. All right, off you go.
Yeah, and do it in a safe, the safety brakes are on type way.
Yeah.
And then ultimately that tag has to come off. And, the game will only accelerate in scale, scope, drama, etc.
And I guess then, does this tie in somewhat to the theory that I think we've talked about before, that the trailer, like trailer 1, is essentially played out in reverse? So the heist that they do at the end of the trailer, well, not the heist, the robbery of the convenience store is, you play the trailer backwards, and then that's what her and Jason have ended up doing, and that's what ends her up in jail. And when she's like, well, how did you end up here? And she's like, bad luck, I guess. It might not be bad luck because Jason might have made that happen, but I don't know robbing a convenience store at gunpoint doesn't feel like a low-level crime to me.
No, I think the minute you introduce waving a weapon around, it doesn't really feel like something that they go, oh, never mind, you didn't mean to hurt anyone, it's fine. That feels like it doesn't quite align to me. So that would question that reverse theory. I don't know if that ties up for me. I think it's possibly more likely that she's in for something else, and then she gets attached to Jason, and their first thing they do as their newly minted partnership is to do some low-level crime to get to the attention of someone. Or, we don't know, but we'll have to look into this. I don't think you would just get an ankle bracelet had you performed an armed robbery.
No, I agree. It could be part of the story that there's some kind of, like you say, some kind of deal done, and it's like, well, you won't have to go to jail, but you do have to wear this ankle monitor. But then if there's a deal done, they wouldn't explicitly be saying don't go robbing anywhere else, especially if they want to get into the higher echelons of whatever crime syndicate they're trying to get into. So lots to think about, definitely. Interesting theories going on, and I think there's a lot of stuff in there that we can definitely expand on to see exactly what it means, how it's going to work, what kind of crime she might have done, and all of that stuff in the future. So, Dan, I think that pretty much wraps up this week's episode, unless there's any more nuggets of wisdom coming.
No more nuggets from me. I'm doing a bit of emergency looking at, what would be the conditions to get you an ankle bracelet. Let's take that offline and please let us know in the comments. If any of you are wearing ankle monitors right now, do set us straight and please excuse any of our aspersions.
Yes, all theories and speculations are welcome, especially when they come from us. Please let us know what you thought about this week's episode and the topics in the comments below. Get in touch with us on Twitter at GTAVOclock and send any tips or links or suggestions to our new email address, gtavicoclock@gmail.com. And we'll be back next week at 6 p.m. for another episode of GTA 6 o'clock.